Welcome everyone. IMA is proud to have sponsored the AAA SET section's mid-year meeting, and we're pleased that this webinar has been a result of IMA's partnership with the SET section. Before we get started, I want to let everybody know that we will be monitoring the chat and the question and answer, so send along questions that you may have as the session goes for Loreal to address at the end. So on to today's topic of accounting and finance in the digital age. I'm excited to introduce Loreal Jiles, IMA's Vice President of Research and Thought Leadership. Loreal has been at the forefront of important IMA initiatives, including the delivery of resources to enable the upskilling of accounting and finance professionals, as well as researching a data-backed view of the future of our profession. She'll provide more background on her career as part of the presentation. So for now, I know we're all excited to hear from Loreal. So welcome.
Thank you, Lori. I am excited to be here. I love to talk about digital technology. For those of you who have engaged with me before, hopefully that's come across consistently. As Lori gave a bit of an intro, a little bit of context on the Institute of Management Accountants, we are hopeful that most of you are members of IMA, academic members. If you're not, hopefully toward the back end of this session, we'll share a little bit about some of the perks of being an academic member of IMA. As you stated, I am Loreal Jiles. I'm currently Vice President of Research and Thought Leadership at IMA. And I joined IMA initially as Director of Research for Digital Technology and Finance Transformation. And that was after about 15 years in the energy industry. And that was in traditional accounting, financial reporting manager roles initially, and then shifting into more transformative roles. We had an initiative in the organization I was in called Modernization, and that included the prongs of digital transformation as well as organizational transformation. So I led several of those initiatives across different segments of the organization from a finance and accounting perspective. I was elected to IMA's Global Board of Directors toward the back end of my stint in the energy industry and I decided, I guess based on that stint, that what I cared much more about than what I was able to do from an organizational perspective was research. And I believe in the power of research and the effects that it can have on the organization, on how we deliver value, on the future of the workforce, and a host of other things. And so I decided to dedicate the rest of my working days to the marriage of digital technology and finance and accounting. And so hopefully some of that will come across today. I'm incredibly passionate about this topic. I went to Southern University and HBCU in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and studied accounting there. And while working in the energy industry, I got an MBA from Tulane University, and I'm actively in a doctorate program as well. So lots going on all at one time. So for today's session, we will talk through the impetus for transformation, why this profession-wide transformation is underway. We'll talk through the impact of digital technology on finance and accounting. We'll do a bit of an overview of certain digital technologies that are affecting the work of accountants and financial professionals. I'll do a bit of a deep dive into RPA, data analytics, and artificial intelligence, as well as data visualization. The last role that I had in the energy industry was standing up a robotic process automation and artificial intelligence program for a finance function. So a lot of what I'll speak to will come from that experience, but also from qualitative research that was conducted in that space. And we'll close out with some of the academic resources and opportunities that IMA has available for you. So we'll start with the impetus for transformation. If everyone could press mute if you're not talking for now, I'd sure appreciate it. In 2019, the IBM Institute for Business Value published a report, The Enterprise Guide to Closing the Skills Gap. And in that report, they indicated that a staggering 120 million workers in the world's 12 largest economies may need to be retrained or reskilled in the next 3 years as a result of intelligent or AI-enabled automation. And what was more astonishing to me than that point is how ill-prepared executives believe their countries and businesses are to offer the development that millions of workers will require. As CFOs and controllers and VPs of finance are implementing plans to prepare their teams for the future, finance and accounting professionals are under pressure. We're under pressure to enhance our value offerings, to reduce cost, and acquire new skills. Emerging digital technologies are providing the finance and accounting function with a path toward fulfilling those objectives. And that's happening while meeting business demand for things like advanced analytics, efficient operations, and strategic decision support. We've got a host of digital technologies, the likes of RPA, artificial intelligence, data analytics. Those present clear and sustainable avenues toward the transformed finance function, or transforming the work of management accountants in today's world. The same thing could be said of financial accountants and auditors in today's world as well for those technologies. In a joint survey of finance and accounting professionals conducted by IMA and Deloitte, we examined the workforce of the future and how it will be shaped by technology, talent, and automation. In that survey, nearly 76% of respondents felt their accounting processes were less than 75% automated. That's nearly 76% of respondents felt their accounting processes were less than 75% automated. And that's given all of the capabilities that we have for digital technology today. When we asked how they're expecting the type of work within finance to change, more than 90% of respondents indicated they feel the level of transactional processing will either somewhat or significantly decrease and become more analytical over the next 5 years. So that brings us to this notion of the race for relevance. My CEO and I have this conversation often. We talk through automation and digital technologies in general they've been around a long time. And I'd say now amid COVID-19 and a host of other evolving changes within the workforce and the broader environment, the urgency to automate and to better leverage technology has never been greater. Emerging technologies like RPA, like process mining, this concept of being able to go and identify what processes could be automated or could better benefit from things like data analytics. Tools like process mining, blockchain, artificial intelligence are advancing rapidly. New competencies like data science are advancing, but not as rapidly as technology. We have to speed up the pace of upskilling in data science and analytics, visualization, and strategy to leverage the new technologies and deliver the insights needed by the businesses that we support. We have to recognize ultimately what's at stake, and that's our relevance in a fast-moving and a digital age. We are effectively in a race for relevance, and relevance depends on competency and talent. And technology is secondary, I'd say, to people and process, but what we'll focus on in today's session is the digital technology side of things. So we'll shift now into the impact of digital technology on finance and accounting. So we'll start with a bit of an overarching view here. Automation is having a wide-reaching impact on the workforce. Bloomberg developed a tool simulating the chances of jobs across a host of professions being impacted by automation. And in that simulation tool, they combined wage and education requirements data from the US Bureau of Labor Statistics with data on the probability of automation from a report called The Future of Employment: How Susceptible Are Jobs to Computerization. With Bloomberg's simulation tool, accountant and auditor jobs are 94% likely to be impacted by automation. Another noteworthy observation from that report is that accountant and auditor jobs are among fewer than 10 professions requiring a bachelor's degree that are more than 90% likely being impacted by automation. And I think that's really important that we tackle that head on, especially in the academic community, because we need to be able to position students, the future of our workforce, for what they'll encounter in their entry-level roles, but not just in those, for what they'll encounter as they learn more about transformation efforts that are underway in the workforce as well. And so there's one aspect of that to say we need to understand that this is happening and it's not going anywhere. And there's another very important aspect of us taking leadership roles and proactive roles in being the ones that lead the charge for automation so that we also create opportunities at the same time. As we think a bit more close to home, although there are a host of digital tools that can be leveraged to automate finance and accounting processes, and examples of those you see on the screen: data science, artificial intelligence, data visualization, et cetera, a host of those opportunities there. RPA is currently recognized as one of a few emerging technologies most capable of automating a significant amount of finance and accounting end-to-end processes. In a recent RPA webinar hosted by IMA with nearly 1,500 attendees globally, 34% of those attendees indicated RPA will be the emerging technology with the greatest impact on finance and accounting profession in the next 3 years. And that was about a year or so ago. And that hasn't changed. I've asked the same question in several webinars since then, and consistently I hear that automation tools, process automation, robotic process automation, will have the greatest impact on our profession in the short term. Now, I want to acknowledge in parallel that my strong view over the longer term is that data analytics, data science, artificial intelligence, that suite of technologies will have the greatest impact on our profession over the long term. I think in the short term, there's a host of low-hanging fruit, and we'll talk about that on the next slide. Activities that we're currently performing today across the profession that can benefit from automation because we're performing them manually. But as the way we deliver value changes, then we will be in a scenario where we need the likes of data analytics, data science, artificial intelligence to be able to generate insights and offer the strategic decision support that's required. As you're joining, please don't forget to mute your microphone.
So anyway,
here we go. If everyone could mute, and I'll invite the host of the call to click mute for any participants who aren't muted. So this is where we'll shift into the specific activities that are being affected. McKinsey & Company conducted a detailed analysis of finance and accounting processes and automation software capability. McKinsey found that the capability of automation tools that existed in 2018, so that's 4 years ago, could fully automate 42% of finance activities and mostly automate a further 19%. The figure on the screen I created as part of the impact on finance and accounting research that I was doing, and this figure combines a summary of finance and accounting tasks that were evaluated in the McKinsey study with other common finance and accounting activities to present the relative complexity of process areas and their relative likelihood of being automated. The figure demonstrates the correlation between process complexity and automation likelihood, highlighting processes traditionally performed by entry-level accounting and finance staff or individual contributors as most likely to be automated. And that's why it's so important for academics to have this view on what types of activities are being automated, especially in large enterprises today. And in some of the small and mid-sized organizations, what we found is that the tools that are being used, the QuickBooks of the world, in some instances, the Oracle, by those small and mid-sized enterprises, those tools are developing native automation solutions for some of the traditional accounting and finance processes that we perform in entry-level and individual contributor roles. These are processes like journal entries and routine close activities, AP and AR, so your accounts payable and accounts receivable, payroll, reconciliations, and cash disbursement. As the relative complexity of tasks increases, so the higher you go up the pyramid, the automation likelihood reduces for current technological capabilities. McKinsey's findings underscore what has been seen in implementations of organizations commencing RPA journeys over the past few years, or any type of automation journey. And what we've seen with RPA specifically, leading RPA software vendors have transparently shared that most enterprises, regardless of industry, begin their RPA journeys in the finance and accounting department. Of greatest impact, again, are tasks performed by entry-level and finance and accounting staff and finance and accounting shared service centers. So if you're familiar with the shared service model, where we were in this mode of outsourcing for, I'd say, a decade and a half or a couple of decades, where we would have activities performed by persons in a different country or in some centralized shared service center. Other examples of finance and accounting processes not listed in this figure on this screen that typically make good RPA candidates include bookkeeping, payroll, data migration and data entry, data profit and loss reporting, P&L reporting as we called it, control testing. In one of my roles, I was financial reporting manager for our derivatives trading business. And so in that scenario where we're trading commodities, that natural gas and liquid products, we had to calculate P&L on a daily basis. And when I was there, it was a manual exercise. Things like RPA could automate those rote processes that we were performing on a daily basis that are incredibly important. But what would have been more important is not to spend the couple hours at the end of each day calculating the P&L, but spending those couple of hours analyzing the results. And that shifts gears into no longer having a lag on that analysis, which was still performed, but wasn't performed until the following day in many instances. Finance and accounting professionals working in organizations who have made progress along their RPA journeys operate in an environment with human and digital coworkers. I very much viewed the team that I led when I was over an RPA program as a team of human employees as well as digital staff. I was accountable as the leader for the work that was performed by the humans as well as the work that was performed by the digital teammates. And because of that, I view them as coworkers. The humans received data from and supplied inputs for processes performed by bots. And we'll talk about that in the next section a bit more. Digital team members can log into the financial system during the early morning hours of critical close work days and pull data to refresh the financial statements. They can create a report with variances highlighted for human teammates to review at the start of their day. And all of this was happening years ago. As a bot can read PDF statements, invoices, translate data captured into financial journal entries. All of that can happen in today's world with existing capabilities. It's a different world than that which most of us have grown accustomed to, and the technology to make that world a reality in more organizations already exists and is in place in many enterprises today. So we'll shift gears now into a deep dive into specific digital technology. And I'll call it a deep dive, but it's probably more like a high-level overview. If you want a deep dive into these technologies, feel free to find me and we can talk through some of those as well. Connect with me on LinkedIn or reach out. We'll start with robotic process automation. So robotic process automation is a technology that enables a virtual robot or a bot to emulate human interaction with computer applications to execute processes. It's effectively copying the steps that you would perform. You would document those steps sequentially, just like we would do in traditional process documentation within accounting roles. And you're simply documenting those steps instead of in a Word document or in an Excel spreadsheet. You're documenting the sequence of those steps in the RPA software. The robot or the bot or the digital worker is a virtual execution engine, and it's emulating or mimicking the clicks and the keystrokes of a human through the user interface of applications. And I like to highlight that distinction because we've been automating processes for decades. But historically, if the accounting and finance function wanted to automate processes, they would engage their IT function. We would send across requirements via a Word document, or we'd have a conversation and they take notes. They get the requirements of what we wanted, and IT goes away and works on those requirements, comes back weeks or months later and says, here's the update, here's a demo of what we put together. It may or may not meet the requirements that we spelled out. Perhaps the requirements have changed as time has passed on. And so what this does, what tools like RPA do or other business processing tools, business process automation tools, there are tools like Microsoft Power Automate that's now on the market as well. What those tools do are put the power of automation in the hands of the business user. And it allows us to design workflows, effectively is what we call them, for bots to automate or for bots to perform. And as you'll see there, although it's tempting to say and is widely said, we are not developing bots if we are RPA developers, we are developing processes that bots will perform. We'll talk now a bit more about the capability of the software, of the technology itself, and then what some of the key components of the software are. So again, RPA is mimicking clicks and keystrokes of a human user, and it's doing that while leveraging process documentation. The bots can log into and perform tasks in accounting and operational applications, and it can retrieve data from websites. It can input data into government websites if it's retrieving that data from the financial system for government reporting. It can perform data entry, and all of that can happen 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year. And I think that piece is also incredibly important, because while we can perform all of these activities, we've been performing all of these activities, it takes us much longer. And we have a bit of a limited time frame that's available. Now, some of us work well beyond 40 hours a week, but we're not at the capability or the capacity, if you will, that a bot could be. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year. The other thing that's important to note from an RPA perspective is there is traditional RPA and there is intelligent RPA. And with traditional RPA, I like to view it as having a bit of a shelf life. There are only so many processes that you'll be able to automate with traditional RPA. They'll need to meet certain criteria. They need to be repetitive. They need to have not many changes going on with them. The applications need to not have patches sent to them, updates on a regular basis, because that could affect the automation itself. And so for traditional RPA, there are only so many processes that organizations can automate. Now, for some organizations, that may be a lot. For some, it may not be as many if they've already made more progress in that space. But where the future of RPA is an intelligent RPA, which is this marriage of robotic process automation and artificial intelligence. And that marriage, or that pairing, enables a bot to learn as it's processing transactions. And examples of use cases there, we implemented a use case where we had the bot processing invoices, and it processed invoices from a host of different countries and in different languages. And that meant those invoices came from different vendors, from hundreds of different companies that we interacted with, different counterparties, and the invoices were all in different formats. And we needed artificial intelligence. We leveraged optical character recognition, in some instances, intelligent character recognition, to be able to read those PDFs without a human needing to read them. And if there are poor quality scanned invoices from certain organizations that didn't have really high quality images that they sent across, that wouldn't be difficult for a human to read, but might be more challenging for the bot. Then we trained the bot through artificial intelligence. The bot would take a first pass at reading and recognizing those characters from that vendor. It would get sent to a human if the confidence level was pretty low or was below a certain threshold. A human would validate that and then send it back across. The bot then learns, oh, okay, I was wrong on this character, I was right on that one. And it uses those learnings as it processes future invoices from those vendors to be able to process them more accurately and increase the confidence with which those invoices are processed. And so most RPA software as well is made up of three primary components. This is there are currently three leading RPA software applications in the market. That's UiPath, letter U, letter I, Path, P-A-T-H. Another is Automation Anywhere. Another is Blue Prism. And across those, as well as a host of other leading RPA tools that are available, there are three primary components: the bot, a bot manager, and the workflow design module. The bots are performing processes. The bot manager enables scheduling and allocation of developed processes. And the workflow design module is where processes are developed. So those three primary components, again, typical in most of the leading RPA software platforms that exist today. The other piece that I'll spend a bit of a minute or two on is deeper dive in what the software offers. Leading RPA vendors have invested heavily in developing native solutions, and that's solutions that are available within their workflow design modules, which is where you spend the bulk of your time if you're an RPA developer. And they partnered with other leading technology companies to offer a host of what I'd call integrating technologies that raise the level of complexity of processes that can be automated with RPA. And at the same time, that's enhancing the comprehensive value that RPA is able to deliver. So it speaks to that notion of traditional RPA versus what you can get with the likes of intelligent RPA or with the likes of integrating traditional RPA with other digital technologies. Examples could be the low quality scanned PDF document that I shared. You would need some optical character recognition technology to be able to progress that. You might have other instances where you want to populate data into a data visualization tool like Power BI or Tableau to perform analytics. And those instances require the use perhaps of natural language processing where you need it to read emails, and the intelligent OCR or data analytics and visualization tools. And all of those are currently natively available in those tools in the leading RPA platforms, their workflow design modules. And if they're not available natively within the tools, there's something called drag and drop activities or library components. So you can pull across some of those that already exist for other digital technologies if you want to have natural links to some of those data visualization or analytics tools that are available. You can do that there as well. The last piece that I'll cover in this segment, when reporting on predictions in the RPA market, Gartner found organizations often underestimate the complexity of RPA initiatives. And the research that I conducted confirmed this. Although the software itself is user-friendly and training is free and readily available from many vendors, there is a large variety of business processes ranging from simple, well-defined rote examples to complex subject matter expert heavy or intensive areas. And these processes are requiring more attention, more governance and coordination than a single team member automating processes on behalf of other team members or teams. And where I'll shift now, so what I'll try to do for each of these technologies that we speak to, I'll share with you IMA Research in that area as well. So I led an RPA research project with 57 qualitative interviews, and that was across leaders in this space, in the RPA space, in the audit space, in the accounting and finance space from a management accounting perspective, as well as a host of digital technology experts. And the goal there was to understand, how do you implement RPA successfully? And I'd say some of the research questions, how can RPA risks be mitigated through governance? How can RPA contribute to or accelerate finance function transformation? How can RPA be implemented at scale? What role can finance and accounting professionals play in RPA implementation? And so those are some of the research questions that I sought to answer when starting this research project. There is a formal report that's available now. You can access it at myima.org/RPA, and you can access it for free. It's called Transforming the Finance Function with RPA, and that provides an overview initially of RPA technology and its impact on finance and accounting. It also identifies 3 keys to scaling RPA, which I'll share on the next slide, and it shares roles finance and accounting professionals can play. IMA resources that are available in this space. So our goal at IMA is not just to generate a research report, but to generate a suite of deliverables around that research project so that they're accessible to anyone who prefers either reading a research report or listening to a podcast or reading a magazine article or taking a course, which we've also created RPA course series that are available. And many professors have already, accounting professors, have integrated the RPA course series, which is a mini series that I created that's only a couple of hours long in total. They've implemented that into their management accounting courses in a lot of instances. It's not aimed at making students RPA developers, but it is aimed at ensuring that we know what we need to know about RPA to be successful as management accountants or as accountants and auditors in the workforce. The 3 keys that were identified to successfully scaling RPA as a result of that qualitative research were establishing governance, not compromising on resource quality, and automating the right processes. I'll speak a bit more in detail about governance in just a few minutes because I want to draw that one out a bit, but not compromising on resource quality speaks to the people that you engage for development. Will the leaders of finance and accounting functions allow their accounting and finance staff to be developers, or will they engage third parties for development? For automating the right processes, ensuring that you've got a systematic approach to identifying whether it'll be bottom up, a grassroots view, you host ideation sessions, or a top down view where leadership is dictating these are the processes that we want to automate from a strategic perspective. So I've got lots more detail related to that in the tools as well as in the courses and the other resources that were shared. But where I'll focus just the next couple of minutes is the single most important prerequisite to a successful RPA program is governance. An RPA team can have a multi-million-dollar budget and the best developers on the globe, but without governance, failure is the most likely scenario. And I think that's important for an accounting and finance audience because we are already accountable for governance in a host of instances. We're already accountable for the internal controls, for what the control environment looks like. And governance is a natural extension of what we've already been doing for decades. And there are 5 prerequisites that we identified for effective bot governance, and that's identifying key stakeholders and proactively seeking input, determining the RPA operating model, conducting an RPA proof of concept and selecting the right RPA tool, performing process discovery, and preparing a business case. I won't do the deep dive here for these, which I do in some of my dedicated RPA sessions, but I wanted to illustrate how we take the qualitative research that we've done at IMA and translate it into actionable insights that have contributions to practice. And so that is the first bit that came out from that. And then the natural extension there, beyond the prerequisites for governance, are identifying the key components of RPA governance. And those are on the screen there: governing bodies, organizational construct, operational life cycle, internal controls, technology governance, performance management, and vendor management. And most of those already have natural overlap with the work that accountants and finance professionals perform today. And that's whether they're in the audit space or in the management accounting space. So if you want to know more about any of that, again, go to myima.org/RPA, and you can get deeper dives into governance through a magazine article or through the RPA report or the courses that are available. So we'll shift gears now into data analytics and artificial intelligence. What I'll start with is this very, very fundamental view of just the 4 types of data analytics, and then we'll shift gears into some use cases and talk about IMA research in this space as well. So 4 types of data analytics: descriptive, diagnostic, predictive, and prescriptive. From a descriptive perspective, it's determining what is happening. And I'll start at this foundational level because to me, it trains our thinking as accounting professionals. We don't have to become data scientists, and we're not expecting accounting academics to become data scientists or to train data scientists, but we do want to start thinking differently about how we approach problem solving more strategically and more analytically. Descriptive analytics, again, what is happening? Although that question of what happened can be answered with great granularity through this approach, descriptive analytics provides insights by indicating that something is wrong or right, but it doesn't explain why. And that's why we move up the maturity model to diagnostic analytics. Diagnostic analytics is providing an answer to why something happened. It's tracking changes and analyzing variances by measuring different aspects of historical data against each other. This measurement of historical data takes place by drilling down into the data, detecting anomalies and identifying correlations. And a lot of this we are already doing from an accounting perspective. We're already teaching students how to conduct and perform variance analysis. And this is effectively taking it up a notch, if you will, using different tools. Predictive analytics. Predictive analytics offers insight into what is likely to happen in the future. Given the current circumstances, it's informed by the findings of descriptive and diagnostic analytics, and predictive analytics is where you start marrying things like artificial intelligence and big data to forecast future trends. This is accomplished through analytical models, through algorithms and machine learning, among other advancements. And it can be as complicated as some of those really sophisticated algorithms, or it could be something that we do called forecasting. We have been accountable for planning and forecasting and budgeting, and that's a view of predictive analytics. It's an approach to that. And this is simply using more advanced tools to be able to perform those tasks, ideally to get greater accuracy or more robust insights. Prescriptive analytics, all the way at the top of the maturity curve, prescriptive analytics goes a step beyond predictive and presents specific actions that should be taken to increase the likelihood of a desired future result. Critical decisions arise from this analysis ultimately shaping risk mitigation plans and overarching strategy. Predictive analytics supports these decisions by processing internal and external data through models. And then you get to that prescriptive side after you've been able to repeatedly test combinations of variables with the goal of recommending those with the highest chance of the intended outcome. And so I like to use real world use cases because it's really nice to hear about the different types of analytics, but without real world application, it doesn't stick in a lot of instances. And so I shared first a few real world examples outside of the finance and accounting space, and that was a bit intentional because it speaks to the breadth and the reach of data analytics, and it also speaks to how accounting and finance professionals are sometimes expected to support these functions. So if you think about it, the human resources, the procurement teams, the legal teams, all have finance and accounting support. There's a financial analyst devoted to those teams, just as there would be an HR analyst devoted to each respective function and operational team within an organization. And to that extent, we may be expected to support from an analytics perspective these different functions that we're already providing strategic decision support for or to. And so for human resources, there's examples of leveraging data analytics with the goal of improving the organization's workforce performance. Data that is routinely collected by HR can be correlated to organizational objectives. And that enables teams to measure how HR initiatives are contributing to organizational strategic initiatives. So you'll see things like talent analytics, people analytics, workforce analytics, and then going all the way to the predictive or the HR side of things. It helps in reducing bias in promotion, prescribing actions needed to maintain a productive, inclusive, and engaged workforce. As you think about procurement and sourcing teams have a considerable amount of data already at their fingertips, and data analytics is allowing them to better and more efficiently develop reports, perform spend analysis, assess suppliers, and perform compliance checks, among a host of other things. From a legal perspective, in-house legal departments are increasingly asked to report and operate like other business functions. And so legal teams are utilizing data analytics to streamline operations that distract from higher value tasks, to track and measure legal decisions. And so I've seen instances, we had a use case ourselves where we leveraged natural language processing and intelligent character recognition to expedite processing of hundreds or thousands of pages of contracts, leveraging algorithms that were designed by legal experts, just as we would want the algorithms used for finance and accounting processes to be designed by accounting and finance experts rather than exclusively by technology experts. Some of the IMA research in this area, if you visit the Strategic Finance magazine, I believe, and we'll see it on the next screen, I think it's the September 2020 edition. There's a cover story there that I authored with a colleague of mine who leads data analytics in IMA, a data-driven approach to the pandemic. And in that article, we focused on COVID-19 use cases throughout the pandemic, and I'll give a glimpse into those on the next screen. And then you'll see another research report that's available, a statement on management accounting, overcoming FP&A or financial planning and analysis, biggest challenge, predicting the future. And you'll see effective strategies for how to leverage data analytics to predict the future. What we highlighted in that strategic finance article were healthcare scenarios throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, finance and accounting scenarios where we needed to look at delinquency risk. Data analytics was used for cash management, for supporting the HR function with regard to employment decisions, where we needed to pull certain levers and what the timing of those might look like, as well as evaluating financial results. From a retail perspective, the retail industry has always had a host of data at their fingertips and were some of the first movers in the data analytics space beyond technology. And what we've seen there is at the start of the pandemic, they had something called an information deficit, where they didn't have access to the data that they were accustomed to having because it was no longer relevant. They had different customer bases. A lot of the customers that they were accustomed to coming into brick and mortar locations were no longer able to go there. They weren't able to use because some of the people lost their jobs or weren't able to work. And so they had to figure out who are our customers now during the pandemic and how might we adjust our products and service offerings, leveraging data analytics to inform what those next strategic steps would be. The last tech that I'll focus on is data visualization. There are two types of data visualization, exploratory and explanatory. When to use each is determined by the reason for preparing the visualization. Exploratory visuals are used when you are unsure about what lies beyond the data or to answer what, when, why, and how questions. How does sales revenue change over time? If you observe patterns of seasonal revenue increases, then you might ask, when does sales revenue increase? Followed by, why did sales revenue increase at that time? And what do those results mean? And that gets you as a segue into the explanatory side, where you're wanting to communicate specific aspects of the story or the story about the data in its entirety to your audience. And I've got two examples that I'll share here. This is an example of a Tableau dashboard from a finance perspective. And this one you can see key performance indicators across the top, those that are most relevant to the organization. This is calling out total revenue, gross profit, operating income, et cetera. And you'll see that you've got the option to give deeper dives, if you will, into certain aspects. And so you'll see this revenue versus gross profit view. You can do that for a host of different views that you might want to explore or that are most relevant to the organization. What's important for accountants and finance professionals to note, especially as they're entering the workforce, is what those key performance indicators are, which we're likely already talking about in the classroom, and then how we might present that, how we might communicate those stories to the business leaders that we're supporting. Another example, and this one not tied to finance and accounting, but a bit intentionally, is data visualization that we see related to the pandemic. I took this snapshot in October 2020 and have intentionally left it as it is. I didn't care to see the more dramatic scenario that has evolved since then. But among some of the most noteworthy data visualization examples that exist in the market today is this one by the World Health Organization, which uses data to report confirmed cases, deaths, and recoveries by geography. And so you'll see that here, this bubble concept will allow you to see where you've got a greater concentration in certain areas. I created something exactly like this for where we had automation opportunities for accounting and finance processes. I was in a global organization, and so we had instances where there were 12 different locations across the globe, and I needed to understand where we had the greatest automation opportunity and then quantify that automation opportunity. So we performed NPV calculations and ROI estimates for each of those respective automation opportunities, and that was a couple hundred at the time, and then plotted them on a map very similar to this to prioritize where we would spend the greatest attention and where we might get additional resources in those regions to support the initiatives. You'll see some IMA data visualization research here on the screen. There is a strategic finance article that's called out there on the left, December 2020 edition. And just a few months ago, we released a statement on management accounting for data visualization applications to accounting and finance processes. Where we'll close with this part of the session before we shift into Q&A. So hopefully there are questions. I haven't been monitoring the chat just to make sure I keep myself honest with the time. Academic resources and opportunities for you. So I'll start with just some of the perks of being an academic member. And you'll see over to the left, we have an IMA educational case journal. Laurie Burney, who is here, is one of the associate editors of that case journal. And you have access to this case journal as well as to the teaching notes if you are an academic member of IMA. And that's incredibly beneficial because you can incorporate those cases into your curricula, into the courses that you're teaching without having to become experts on certain areas. It will allow you to supplement some of that. We've got a really popular case, the Husky Motors case, which is a data analytics case that's available there, several ethics related cases, and a host of others. So there's over 100 that are available. You can also see tons of courses that are available. And I called out the RPA one, which you see referenced over to the right, but we've also got Data Analytics and Visualization Fundamental Certificate course, as well as one that's beyond the basics. These are available for free to student members. The student membership is only $25 a year. And so several professors have granted their students in their management accounting course or in other accounting courses IMA membership, student membership, and then have incorporated some of these courses, which are at no additional cost for their students within the courses as well. And what you'll see From a research perspective, so that speaks to some of the tools that are just available to you, and there are tons, but feel free to look into that, and I'll have a couple of links available in the coming slides. From a research perspective, we have something called the IMA Research Foundation, for those of you who are not aware, and we provide funding, research grant programs, doctoral scholar programs, and academic researcher awards. I'll share a little bit more about funding on the next screen. And what you'll see over to the other side are IMA publication. We've got award-winning Strategic Finance magazine that is available. We've got Management Accounting Quarterly. The Strategic Finance magazine is an exclusive, it's targeted, I'd say, toward practitioner audiences. Management Accounting Quarterly is more, I'd say, traditionally conducted empirical research from a research perspective that relates to management accounting. Tremendous overlap with the technology space and a host of other, I'd say, complementary domains. But we still want these in this journal to have a view toward the academic and a leg into the practitioner space as well. And so you'll see links there. You can email research@imanet.org or iecj@imanet.org if you want to look into any of those. I assume that these slides will be shared with you after the session as well. The last thing that I wanted to cover just in a little bit more detail are research funding opportunities. There is currently a special call for proposals, research grant proposals, and that special call ends May 31st. I've got the link there at the bottom, imanet.org/educator/research-foundation. And if you go there, you'll be able to see that special call for proposals, and that's funding up to $20,000 for up to 3 proposals, and then a host of others receiving $5,000 for funding. And I've listed a few of the topics that we're looking at: digital technology, certainly one of them, sustainability, supply chain management, revenue management, FP&A. And if you go to that link, you'll see the special call right at the top of the web page, and you'll be able to see the details of all the different areas that we're looking for. You can also submit into anything related to the management accounting space, and we will happily consider that as well. Our ongoing research grant programs you see over to the right, the Doctoral Scholars Program, if you know accounting students who are currently pursuing doctorate degrees, then to the extent that their research has anything to do with management accounting, feel free to encourage them to apply to the Doctoral Scholars Program for up to $15,000 of funding, the Incubator Grant Program, as well as our Standing Academic Research Grant Program as well. I am hopeful that that was beneficial to you. I'm hopeful that it gave you a bit of a foundational level at the least on digital technologies and how they're affecting our profession. I will stop sharing in the hopes of being able to see a few more faces here in a bit, and I will turn it over to Lori to see if we've got questions in the chat.
A wonderful presentation, Loreal. Very informative as always with what you provide for us. And I will remind people to continue to either send them questions directly to me or include them in the chat. And so we have a few questions here, so we'll get started testing you a little bit.
Yeah.
So as accounting professors, how can we provide students with the technology knowledge and skills they'll need when they start their careers?
Yes, excellent question. So a couple of ways, and I'll start with a biased answer, but in full transparency, we have a lot of free resources at IMA to help you. And that's intentional. We're a nonprofit organization, and so our goal here is to advance the management accounting profession. To do that, we need to ensure that the future of our workforce is prepared. And so we've got, in addition to the IMA Educational Case Journal, we've got a host of courses that you can incorporate into your curriculum. I've got a different deck that we can use for a different day, and I believe I'll be presenting at the AAA conference in San Diego. So that will speak to specifically how you can implement digital technology into your curriculum. So I'll speak to that in tremendous detail at the AAA conference in San Diego. But what I'd say for now, we have some resources that are available. We encourage you either to consider offering deeper dives into data analytics and technology courses in your curriculum. If you don't have the space to do that, or it will take too long to start doing that, which is very likely in some instances, then the other thing you can do is start incorporating those use cases into your management accounting course or into your financial accounting course. And what that means is take a case study or a teaching case that has a data analytics component and simply apply that to one of the accounting processes that you already need to teach students on. We've got instances with the RPA use cases. One of those speaks to value creation. It requires students to calculate NPV and ROI. They already have to learn how to do that. So that might be a natural extension. So our recommendation, where you can't have dedicated courses that speak to certain technologies, which some professors have gone the route of doing, then simply incorporate into your existing courses. The assignments can have a technology angle, can have a technology lens.
Okay, very cool. They're very interesting. One of our attendees said that they are currently teaching an advanced auditing grad class and are looking for additional information to stress the importance of digital tools. Is there something that comes to mind? I know this is off the top of your head, but that you would recommend he or she starts with?
So the greatest impact from a digital technology perspective on auditing will be data analytics. IMA has a data analytics and visualization fundamental certificate. And while we designed that for accountants working in business, the skills that they will gain in that course can be applied to what they need to do from an auditing perspective. And so I would recommend considering the IMA Data Analytics and Visualization Fundamental Certificate. I don't know if it's in the chat. I'm intentionally not looking, but Mary, I'm certain, can drop in the link if she hasn't already. And that course, again, is free to student members. So if you get your student members access, $25 a year, they can take that course. It may be an 8 or 9 hour course, but it's something they can do online, self-paced. I'd recommend considering incorporating that into your curriculum.
Okay. So I guess this raises the broader question, are the resources that you're talking about, are they specific to the management accounting, or are they applicable across all accounting subdisciplines?
Great question. So we design with management accounting in mind, but they are applicable to all accounting subdisciplines. And so an example of that would be, from an RPA perspective, there are audit use cases in the RPA course. And that's intentional because management accountants are also internal auditors. And so the things that would apply to an internal auditor would apply all the same to external audit. There are other courses, the data analytics piece. We've got things on agility and how you can leverage agile methodology. There are audit use cases there as well. So I'd say while we design with management accounting in mind, because 80% of the U.S. accounting and auditors workforce is in management accounting roles. So whether they start off in audit or not, they're likely to be there at some point. So we design with that in mind, but the technology, I'd say especially the technology courses that we have are applicable to other subdisciplines as well.
And I will, as an associate editor with IECJ, I will bring up that there is application outside of management accounting for some of the IECJ cases, and there is a fantastic Excel spreadsheet that will allow you to search for cases based on topics related to the IECJ. So I would encourage people to look at that resource, not just for technology, but in other ways. So you freaked me out a little bit with the race for relevance, okay, in that comment. And that goes along with a comment that we got of which technologies does the IMA feel are the most important for accounting and finance professionals to learn or become familiar with?
Great question. I would say 2, and that's data analytics and process automation tools. And I'm careful there to say process automation because I'm not saying it has to be robotic process automation. There are other process automation tools in the market. You can see things like Alteryx, which helps with a lot of the Excel work that's being done. You can see traditional RPA tools. You can see Microsoft Power Automate, which is picking up steam now. It's a late entrance into the market from a process automation perspective. But because they're Microsoft, I fully expect that it will take off pretty quickly here. And it's a much lower price point for organizations as they implement because they've got access to the full O365 suite. And so I would say from an automation perspective, students need to understand what automation means. They need to understand how to identify automation opportunities. And ideally, they need to be exposed to how to develop an automation workflow. They don't need to be experts, just exposed, because that exposure will allow them to think differently, to work more effectively with the IT organizations that are supporting them as they automate accounting and finance processes, and then fundamental data analytics and visualization, because what we're doing today, as we're asked to deliver greater insights and more strategic decision support, we need to use data analytics tools to be able to do that. We don't have to become data scientists, but we need to be able to think in the context of those 4 different types of analytics. We need to think in the context of how did sales revenue increase, why did it increase, and what analytics tools can I use to answer those questions. So I'd say those 2, automation opportunities, and then data analytics and visualization.
Okay, interesting. So you mentioned a little bit about the FAR. And so I know there are various peoples who have different research interests and are conducting different research. How can we as accounting faculty work with the IMA in a research capacity?
Yes. So we would be delighted to fund your research. and I say that in the most genuine of ways. A lot of instances, we don't get enough people submitting research applications for these grants. So the first way that you can partner with IMA is if you're already leading a research project, or there's a research project you want to start. We've got different types of grants: incubator grants for those that are just ideas. We've got academic research grants if you want to use something where you've already got a proposal written up and you're about to get started, or you've already had it underway. And so you can apply for the research grants that are available, respond to the special call. Lots of additional funding available in that scenario, but there is an open call for academic research grants that you have access to through the Research Foundation. The one other lens that I would say is there are also instances where our department, so the Research and Thought Leadership Department that I'm leading at IMA, is looking for academics to partner with us in the research areas. I lead the Digital Technology Research Initiative personally. And so if you're interested in research that's related to management, accounting, and digital technology, that intersection, in most sincerity, just send me an email. I'm not bombarded with those types of requests. And so to the extent you reach out, you can reach out to myself. If there is another person at IMA that you've been working with, like Mary or Tyler, then you can reach out to one of them and let them know that you're interested in conducting research with IMA, and just share with us a few short bullets, not full research proposals, a few short bullets on what areas you're interested in. And I spoke to digital technology, but we also have researchers in my department who focus on sustainability, on ethics and corporate governance, on more traditional management accounting topics, profitability analytics, revenue management, as well as the softer side, if you will, innovation and well-being and talent development and things of that sort. And so there are lots of domains that we're focused on. And to the extent that we have bandwidth and it aligns with our existing research agenda, then we might consider bringing an academic or 2 on to partner with us for a practitioner and an academic research publication. And you would be paid or compensated for that work as well.
Okay, very good. And I understand you're doing more of a research/teaching track at the IMA meeting in June?
Yes. So at the annual conference in June, we have a formal academic track, and we've got 2 sessions where we will allow people to present research, so active research that's already underway or that has recently been conducted, and some teaching innovations, so innovative teaching approaches. We didn't want it to just be research, so we've got a bit of a balance in both of those sessions. So you'll see you can sign up and register for those sessions. All academic members that register for the conference will also be invited to an exclusive academic dinner that's on the Sunday night leading into the conference, as well as an exclusive lunch on the Monday of the conference. And so as you register, you'll start getting those invitations. So hopefully you attend those sessions, learn more about some of the latest teaching innovations, including gamification and other cases that are available in the ethics space, and then much more from a research perspective. I think we've got somebody presenting on NFTs from a digital technology perspective, non-fungible tokens, and a host of other things, lean accounting, gamification in the research space as well.
I want to reiterate that we thank everyone for attending the session this afternoon, especially L'Oreal for the fantastic coverage of the topic. And we appreciate everybody engaging with great questions. And I think that reflects how important this topic is to us as accounting academics. And so the IMA is very happy to be a sponsor of the AAA SET section, and we look forward to more opportunities to partner in the future and learn more about these topics. And I hope everyone has a fantastic weekend. And thanks for attending today.
Thank you all for coming.